Hello everyone, I'm Jeff Hampton with the Fulgham Law Firm. Welcome to our YouTube channel. Sexting. When is it illegal? Can you get in trouble for sexting? By the way, thanks for joining us here today. If you wait around to the end of our video, I'll give you a free ebook, What to Do If You Have Been Charged with a Crime in Texas. Okay, now, if you think about it, today we do everything on our phones. I sound like an old person when I say this, but it's pretty amazing in just a 10-year time span, all the things that we do on our phones. We chat, we navigate, we surf the web, we pay our bills. We do everything on our phones nowadays. We play games, we watch videos. Well, here's the problem. It's not that surprising that people would also choose to take pictures of themselves and send it to other people as part of their whatever reason, whether it's for part of their romantic relationship or for whatever reason they're choosing to do that. That has now become a very commonplace thing. The problem is it all may seem to be harmless when it's occurring between two consenting adults, but serious criminal charges can result between making the decision to sext between parties. Okay, sexting is particularly dangerous when one or both of the particular participants that are involved are under the age of consent. Because even when sexting occurs between two minors, we find this happening all the time in high schools. Minor children, people in, kids in high school that are sexting back and forth. Under the law, it technically sending those explicit images or videos back and forth still qualifies as electronically transmitting sexual depictions of children, okay? Now, this practice is still very common. Doesn't matter. A lot of the young people out there that are still doing it aren't even thinking about it. It's not even an issue that arises in their mind, because what happens is it's fairly normal. When kids get a hold of cell phones, they start flirting with one another. The next thing you know is they're sending these sexually explicit things back and forth to each other, never anticipating that it could result in life-altering criminal charges. Now, I'm going to get into the sexting laws in Texas here in just a second as it relates to minors, but I want to remind you as well, not just minors. Now, a lot of this will happen. You can still run into criminal charges for adults when two consenting adults are sexting back and forth. And here's what I want to give you an example. We represented someone at one point in time. He was literally in his 50s, okay? He was having an affair on his wife with another woman, and she was in her 50s. And as part of their soiree that they were having with each other, they were sending back sexual explicit images. They were sexting one another. Well, then predictably, things went sour, things went south over a period of time, and the husband of our client found out about it and immediately contacted our client and said, "Hey, you need to send me all of the photos you have of my wife right now." Well, what did he do? He sent them. He texted them back over to this man, and then the man called the police, and the police tried to charge our client with a felony charge of literally visually improper photography of what he did with these images. So even two consenting adults that decide they want to do this as a part of whatever type of experience that they're having, you need to be aware of the fact you create an unnecessary risk that if things go south, it could be used against you in a very serious way, okay? Now, what about sexting between minors? Now, Texas punishes sexting between minors under its law prohibiting electronic transmission of sexual depictions of children. Under this statute, it is illegal for one minor to send a sexually explicit or suggestive image of someone under 18 years of age to another minor. This includes images of the sender, the recipient, or another minor child. However, prosecution is likely to offer some relief under certain circumstances, okay? For example, if the images are solely of the sender or the recipient, and if they were sent within a dating relationship between these two minors, and if both parties are not more than 2 years apart in age, even if one of the parties is over 18 years of age, then it is generally only going to be a misdemeanor level offense, okay? Now, adults who are engaged in dating relationships with a minor more than 2 years younger face much more serious penalties for sexting. What if you have an 18-year-old with a 15-year-old? What if you have a 19-year-old with a 16-year-old? Under Texas law, adults could be charged for distributing sexual images to a minor, possessing or distributing child pornography, or promoting sexual performance by a minor child if those two in a dating relationship took a video of sexual activity between the two of them and if it was distributed in some way, okay? So these offenses that I just gave to you are all considered felonies, and here's the worst part about it, is that resolving those cases, unless they're dismissed, can many times also result in the individual having to register as a sex offender. All right. So let's talk about, and I'm not going to get into this in too much detail here, but in addition to it being a crime under Texas law, depending on the circumstances of the alleged offense, sexting can also be a crime under federal law and could, in theory, unlikely, it doesn't happen very often, but in theory it could be prosecuted federally, which would carry with it much more serious and severe penalties and fines, okay? So here's the name of the act: the Prosecutorial Remedies and Other Tools to End the Exploitation of Children Today Act of 2003. It's called the PROTECT Act, okay? It makes it federally illegal to produce, distribute, receive, or possess with intent to distribute any sexual, explicit, or suggestive image of a minor child. Now, knowing possession of this material, even if you do not intend to distribute it to anyone else, is also a crime, okay? So this act criminalizes causing a minor to take part in any sexually explicit conduct in order to visually depict that conduct. This would include encouraging or asking a significant other who is under the age of 18 to send explicit images. This is prosecuted as a separate offense. It's also a federal crime to use a computer to transport, receive, distribute, or reproduce for distribution any sexually explicit or suggestive image of a minor or other material that constitutes child pornography, which will be an additional charge. So my point is this. Listen, we're talking about minors at the moment. You see how it applies to adults here, but it can also be a federal charge. Now, the one caveat I'll give to that is that the Federal Juvenile Delinquency Act provides that when possible, juveniles should always be prosecuted in state courts. Now, the reason why that matters is it kind of helps create this presumption that anytime a juvenile is caught up in this type of thing, it's almost always going to end up in a state court instead of federal court. So Texas law says that sexting between two minors is a Class C misdemeanor, which can include a fine of up to $500, and it can also result, if you pay it, it can result in a criminal record. Penalties can be enhanced if there have been prior convictions or if the sexting was part of cyberbullying or another form of harassment, okay? Texas law also says that a minor who receives sexts as a part of cyberbullying or harassment will unlikely be charged with a crime so long as the individual does not send the sext to anyone else. So, I mean, here's the deal. It may not seem like it's a big deal, but here's the thing. These things can get blown out of proportion if it's sexting between minors, and if it just so happens to be where you have two people that are dating, one of them is an adult and one of them is a juvenile, and they're more than 2 years apart, this can get serious really fast. Because if an adult sexts with a minor, he or she is likely to face child pornography charges. And possession of child pornography under Texas law starts out as a third-degree felony, punishable by a minimum of 2 up to 10 years in prison and up to a $10,000 fine. Penalties further increase if the adult distributes the images or videos and not just possesses them. Now, if you possess with the intent to distribute those items, it enhances that charge potentially to a second-degree felony, punishable by up to 20 years in prison and up to a $10,000 fine. So, perhaps the worst thing about all of this is the last thing you want to ever happen is you do not want to have to register as a sex offender. Whether you take a probation or whether you were to go to prison, sex offenders are generally required to register for a minimum of 10 years or the registration requirement could be up to life. That'll forever limit your opportunity to be able to live in certain places, get certain types of jobs, and just be branded with that scarlet letter of being claimed that you are somehow a sex offender. So the reason why I bring all this up is that it is unlikely that many times that a juvenile will have to register as a sex offender for sexting, but the possibility can't be ruled out, particularly if the two people involved in the relationship, one was an adult, barely, maybe 18, and the other one was more than 2 years separated in age from that adult, okay? So we have represented a number of folks who have found themselves in that situation. And if you or a loved one is facing this type of scenario, or you have more questions about this law as it applies in Texas, don't hesitate to contact the Fulgham Law Firm at 817-877-3030. By the way, I promised you if you waited around to the end of this video, I would give you a free ebook, What to Do If You Have Been Charged with a Crime in Texas. Click the link below, input your email information, and we'll be happy to send that right over to you. And by the way, if you enjoyed what you heard here today, subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our video. We'll be happy to send you more great content just like today. Thanks again for joining us. Hope you have a great day.